What's going on, everyone? It is the Derf, and in today's video, a lot of you guys asked for it, and here it is, my updated meta Solar Warlock build since the recent changes that Bungie implemented with grenade scaling. This Meta 2.0 OG Solar Warlock is absolutely noticeably different, and fans of Eunoia and the Hellion this season, you guys are not going to have to do a whole heck of a lot with your armor. You will have to make some adjustments, but this build absolutely does feel stronger. You're going to be infinitely radiant, proccing restoration constantly, having overpowered grenades and your Hellion, and you're basically going to be printing orbs of power the entire time. So if you do find anything helpful in this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Please share this with a Guardian in need who loves their Solar Warlock. And most of all, enjoy lighting the world on fire. Here we go. To get us started on our Meta 2.0 Solar Warlock, our subclass, of course, is Dawnblade. Super of choice is going to be Well of Radiance. Thrust your sword into the ground, damaging and scorching nearby targets. The sword projects a continuous aura, granting radiant effects and restoration to nearby allies, protecting them from the effects of stasis. If you have never used Well of Radiance, you will become quickly everybody's best friend in any fire team that you find yourself in. While certain activities don't really mesh well with Well of Radiance, just about every activity you will find yourself in, Well of Radiance will be a welcome addition to any fire team, and especially if you are running solo. For abilities, we're going to go with Phoenix Dive, Burst Glide, Incinerator Snap, and for this build, we are going to go with the Fusion Grenade. Fusion Grenade is my favorite grenade because it does a moderate scorch, and with our aspects, it's actually going to explode twice, and when it explodes twice while attached to the target that we are throwing it at, assuming you have somewhat decent aim, especially if it's an unstoppable champion, that will be enough to stun it and roast most yellow and most red bars. Now again, some of that depends on the difficulty of the activity that you're rolling in, and some of it also depends on your grenade armor stat. For aspects, first aspect up is going to be Touch of Flame. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, fusion grenades explode twice. That is precisely why we are using Touch of Flame. For the double explosion for our fusion grenade, we are trying to get an ignition every single time we use a fusion grenade, and with the fusion grenade usage, we should be able to proc that fairly often, sometimes to even more than one combatant. Next up is going to be the Hellion. This is pivotal in this build because we are going to be spamming this like it's going out of style, which hopefully it doesn't. The molten remains of a Cabal magma launcher barrel. Activate your class ability to summon a solar mortar that lobs flame projectiles at distant targets. Targets damaged by the mortar are scorched. Hellion damage is scaled by the enhanced benefit of the grenade stat. So not only are we going to be able to deal huge damage numbers with our fusion grenade, our Hellion on top of it now scales with our grenade stat. So if you spec heavily into that, you will see an increase in damage output. For fragments, first up is going to be Ember of Ashes. You apply more scorch stacks to targets. This should be a given because we want to light the world on fire as well as our opponents. Next up is going to be Ember of Searing. Defeating scorch targets grants melee energy and creates a fire sprite. I really want a fire sprite because fire sprites grant grenade energy. So you're going to see this infinite return of grenade energy coming back to you, and with the other fragments, we're also going to get one additional benefit. Ember of Solace is next up. Radiant and restoration effects applied to you have increased duration. With our artifact, we are going to be able to proc Radiant regularly, so Ember of Solace will have given us an increased duration. I believe it goes up to 15 seconds. Last but not least, Ember of Singeing, and this one is very important. Your class ability recharges faster when you scorch targets. For armor stats, go ahead and spec into grenade, weapons, and class in that order. Now, the key here is to try to get 3 stats at or above 100. But more importantly, you want your grenade stat to at least be at a 130. The reason why you want your grenade stat at least 130 is the damage starts to get more noticeable the closer you get to 150 and above. Now, at 144, just for frame of reference, you get an additional 28.2% PvE damage. So, your grenade is going to scale off of that, as well as your class ability, Hellion, is going to scale off of that as well. Your grenade cooldown is already going to be at 34 seconds, and at a 100 for your class ability, you have 27-second cooldown. So even in activities where you go from spot to spot to spot, you're not really continuously engaged in enemies, like say an onslaught, for example, which still there are breaks in between those waves. But you get what I'm trying to get at. You're still going to have all your abilities from point A to point B. And when you're in point A or point B, for example, you should be able to constantly refresh them both by our fragments, as well as weapon perks, which we're going to go over here in a little bit. And then, of course, just the general cooldown and orb pickup. For weapons in the kinetic slot, I'd say you have 4 solid options. Number 1 is going to be Mint Retrograde. We still want to try to spec into Strand and Solar Siphoning if you can, but if not, like I don't have on this particular build, you can still spec into Mint Retrograde and obtain other benefits, which we'll get to in the artifact. Other notable options, Giver's Blessing with Demolitionist and Kinetic Tremors. I can't really say enough about this weapon. I love it. 279 kills doesn't seem like much, but when you're going at a lot of different enemies with a bunch of abilities and swapping through your weapons, you know, the kills are spread out pretty evenly. And then, of course, Outbreak Perfected, which is still meta. And then Force Memorializer. If you have not picked up one of these, I highly encourage you to grind Pinnacle Ops until you get one. Kinetic Tremors is absolutely ridiculous with this scout rifle. And remember, it's 180 and it's got a range of right now 74, but depending on your roll, you might have a little bit higher or a little bit lower. Reload speed, you want to try to get at least at a 40. For the energy slot, Ahab Char, Return Memory, and Pre-Astyanax. Those are the 3 that you want to have in here somewhere. Now, the key here being you want to be able to spread as much Scorch as possible, and that's where your solar weapons are going to come into play. Ahab Char, of course, I think is the number 1 auto rifle right now in the game for good reason. Burning Ambition, I've got you know, a really solid roll here with high stability and decent reload speed, and it's just served me so well in a lot of different areas. But you can also theoretically run with double special, have Return Memory. Return Memory can give you some additional grenade benefits by dealing splash damage. It grants an improved bonus to your grenade stat. And then last but not least, Pre-Astyanax, the 4th. If you have been grinding Pinnacle Ops or have done many Pinnacle Ops, or even a few Pinnacle Ops, Pre-Astyanax likely has dropped for you at least once. This is the only bow in the game that can roll with Incandescent and Burning Ambition. In this roll specifically, I got Firefly and Burning Ambition. It doesn't matter though. Throw on the draw time decrease if you want. You can get this draw time down to 612, which is pretty darn fast, all things considered, for a high accuracy precision frame bow. In the heavy slot, Microcosm and Unwavering Duty are your 2 preferred options here. Microcosm, of course, because when you activate your super, you can swap to Microcosm and deal bonus damage to supers, and take into consideration the main trait, Paracasual Imbuement, which gives you enhanced damage once your super expires, which means since you're thrusting your Well of Radiance into the ground, you will have the entire Well of Radiance lasting the entire time it takes you to burn through the cooldown for your Paracasual Imbuement. And of course, Unwavering Duty. Yes, I know you have to grind trials, but just like the Pre-Astyanax, this is the only weapon you can roll with Incandescent and Burning Ambition, but I really like Auto-Loading Holster and Bait and Switch, and since it's a solar weapon, when I scorch targets and I continue to dump solar weapon rounds into that target, I can increase those scorch stacks simply by just firing into them. And oh, by the way, if that wasn't enough, your bait and switch can be infinitely refreshed by swapping through your weapons. And the way that it works with Mint Retrograde, by the time you fire off a round of Mint Retrograde and then dump a few rounds in from your Ahab charge, this thing is already reloaded every single time. So it's pretty nice when it comes to damage swap in rotation. So here we go. I've talked about it before, but Eunoia makes another appearance in one of these build videos. Certainly, I'm not the first person or probably the last person to make a build video surrounding Eunoia, but Console's Pitch, Hellion projectiles deal increased damage the further they travel, eventually fracturing into scorched shrapnel. Now, remember, your Hellion scales off of your grenade damage, which means your Hellion is automatically as powerful as what your grenade stat is set at. If you're below 100, it's whatever the normal strength is. If you're above 100, it takes the same grenade damage bonus as your actual grenade would. So Console's Pitch, if you get this thing up to about 150 or at least over 130, it's going to be a noticeable bump in damage. This build is incredibly powerful. Even with my super stat at 37, I still do not have a problem getting multiple supers in a damage phase when I'm using this build. And part of that is because of Console's Pitch. Also factor in the fact that if you were to swap out of the Well of Radiance and go to either the other two, if you're in a busier activity but not necessarily boss DPS-y type activities, that doesn't matter. You're going to be able to spam your super with this build, even with your super stat at a measly 37 like me. But given how I'm using this build, I'm not spamming my super, even if I get it multiple times during a normal run of whatever portal activity I'm running in, or raid, for example. I'm using it when I get to the boss. That's just how it is. Or when I know that there's a time where there's going to be a gob of enemies, and I just want to use it for some quick, clearing the battlefield, so to speak. Some majors, champs, things like that. As far as the armor mods go ahead and spec into whatever general armor mod that you need. For the helmet, make sure you have Ashes to Assets on. You get bonus super energy every time your Hellion or your actual grenade kills an enemy. For this specific build, I like to run Heavy Ammo Finder, although you could make an argument to run a second Ashes to Assets or a Special Ammo Finder. Lastly, because I only have one energy slot remaining, I put on a Harmonic Siphon. Actually, I have two remaining, but there are no two energy mod, mods. So I've got the Harmonic Siphon because my main play is going to be rocking my Ahab Char or my Pre-Astianax. Those are the two that I swap between very often. For the gauntlets, I'm rolling with 3 firepower. That way, if I throw out a grenade or my Hellion, any kill that I get with either of those is going to net me an orb of power every single time. For the chest armor, go ahead and throw on 2 elemental damage resistance mods and make sure you put on a solar ammo generation mod. Because you're going to be rocking a solar weapon for most of your Ackler, this is going to make the most sense so that you can get ammo bricks spawned for your Mint Retrograde and your heavy weapon, whichever you prefer. For the leg armor, go ahead and throw on an Innervation, Absolution, and a second Absolution. Now, if you find yourself having a problem staying alive, which it's kind of hard to get into a situation where that is with this build, you could also swap Innervation out for Better Already. Your health will begin to regenerate immediately after picking up an Orb of Power, and trust me, you will not have a shortage of those. For the class item, go ahead and throw on Distribution, reduces all ability cooldowns when using your class ability near targets. Go ahead and throw on Bomber, reduces grenade cooldown when using your class ability. And of course, your class font, you get a bonus to your class stat when you have any armor charge, which of course is when you pick up, any orb of power. Now, you can easily swap out Distribution for a grenade mod Distribution for Bomber if you so choose. But it really is not necessary, so just take the free bump to all your abilities with this build. Since you're going to be spamming your class abilities so often anyways, you're not really going to notice the difference because your grenade, even though it's very powerful, it's going to be kind of a spammy afterthought, so to speak, since you're going to be relying so much on your Hellion to help mow down enemies. As far as the artifact goes, in the first column, you're going to have to pick and choose based on the weapons you chose for the kinetic and the energy slot. For me personally, I rock Antibear, Scout, and Pulse, Overload, Rapid Fire, and anti-barrier bow. That way I don't have to switch between, switch things up when I put on my bow for my energy slot. But do whatever feels best, whatever weapon you prefer, make sure you have the matching champ mod on. In the second column, Flame, Fiber, and Freeze combines the Solar Strand and Solar Stasis Siphon mods into one. If your armor stats are a little bit different than mine and you can afford to do a 1 energy mod for the general armor mod in your helmet, you can put this on and then you can get orbs of power from both your strand weapons and your solar weapons. Next up, we got the Threadling Proliferation Artifact perk. Dealing strand weapon damage has a chance to spawn a Threadling. Defeating a strand debuff target increases this chance. Now, I'm going to switch back over to my Mint Retrograde and I'm going to talk about something. On this Mint Retrograde roll, I've got Hatchling and I've got Slice. Every time I cast my class ability, I have the ability to sever targets on hit for an improved duration up to a maximum number of targets. Every time I sever a target, more than likely a Threadling is going to spawn. But if not, I still have the Hatchling perk equipped because spawning more chaos on top of the, the scorching effects is very nice. So if you have a Mint Retrograde, which hopefully most of you have since Zavala had them for free in the tower not that long ago, put on Slice and Hatchling for this build. Now, getting back to it. In the third column, Fever and Chill, so that way your solar weapons can grant you Radiant. Remember, this is going to pair with our Fragments to extend the duration of Radiance up to, I believe it's 15 seconds. Someone can fact check me in the comments and let me know for sure. Next up, you want to put on Refresh Threads, picking up an elemental pickup, matching your subclass element, or picking up a Tangle while you have a Strand Super equipped, grants energy to your least charged ability. This is going to be really nice for our overall recyclery of abilities that are going to be coming back to us very quickly. In the fourth column, go ahead and put on Elemental Daze, since chances are you're going to be coming across champions. Throw on Elemental Coalescence. Defeating targets has a chance to create an elemental pickup matching your equipped super element. That's going to be key for getting your grenade energy back even faster. And then don't forget about energy acceleration. Sustained damage with micro missiles causes the combatant to emit a kinetic shockwave that damages nearby targets. This is going to be a fun one to use with our Mint Retrograde, which is a micro missile weapon. Last but not least, put on Radiant Shrapnel so that you can get some additional solar projectiles and Shield Crush, since we are going to be Radiant all the time. So that is my Meta 2.0 Solar Warlock build. This build is absolutely ridiculous in all the activities I've run this in, and that is on top of the Arc Buddy builds. That's on top of the Axiom Bolt builds that are out there. Literally, all these different things with Warlocks have received such a huge benefit to use because of the change that Bungie did. So W for Bungie. Bungie needs all the W's they can get right now, quite honestly. And that's not me sucking up to them. That is literally just the facts, because there's other things that can be addressed for other classes that could put them in line with Warlock if Bungie ever so chose to do. But for right now, Warlock is the class to use in the current meta. It just is. It is the most utilitarian. You've got the most build potential with all the different elements, of course, even prismatic, but even with the OG elements, solar, arc, and void specifically, are just absolutely ridiculous right now with the changes to the grenade stat, as well as things that scale with the grenade stat. So if you did find anything helpful in this video, please consider liking and subscribing. If you know a Guardian out there who is looking for an updated way to take advantage of their Hellion and their Eunoia exotic armor, make sure you share this video with them or send them my way. My goal is to help as many people as possible. As always, I will have a dim link in the video description. And if by chance you are looking for a non-toxic gaming community, I highly recommend jumping into my Discord. It is booming with Guardians, trying to help other Guardians and pairing up to take on all of the things with the power grind, as well as farming armor to create some of these amazing Warlock builds. So shout out to my Discord. Also, shout out to anyone watching this video right now. We just hit 3,000 subs on the channel, and I want to personally thank each and every one of you, especially those who have continued to support me throughout the whole year. When we started this regular posting of build videos this year, I had 125 subs for the channel, and to think about how many that took to get all the way up to 3,000 is kind of mind-blowing, honestly. And it isn't without your support. Of course, my Discord community, shout out to you guys, and of course, my paid members of the channel. Big shout out to you guys for truly believing in me and, showing me with, your hard-earned cash. I really, really, really do appreciate it. So anyways, I'm going to switch over to the boss battle. You're going to see how that just absolutely goes with a build like this, and then we will wrap it up. So like I said in the intro of the video, Eunoia and the Hellion as a whole were kind of written off initially by a lot of people, myself included. I owned it back then. I'm owning it now. I really didn't see, the draw to using the Hellion more often, or even in endgame activities. There's so many other options that I thought, man, this is just not going to compare. Then Bungie did something unexpectedly and scaled all of the abilities like the Hellion with our grenades, and now suddenly, on top of having overcharged grenades and grenade spam builds and things like that, now we're talking about using abilities like turrets as a spam build that you can build into. Let's see how many times I can say the word build in this outro video. And honestly, it's the nicest change, the nicest quality of life change that I can remember in recent Bungie history. And, when it comes to grenade scaling, when it comes to building into weapons, one of the best things about it being scaled with your grenade instead of your melee, you can absolutely spec into gunner armor, which means your first two stats are going to be weapons and grenades. So when you're farming armor, when you're looking at a build like this that scales with grenade damage and things like that, you can spec into weapon armor, weapon archetype armor, and honestly, well, it's gunner. It's not weapon archetype, but you know what I mean. When you spec into gunner armor and your first two stat spikes are undoubtedly going to be weapons and grenade, that means you really only have to then try to focus on specking into class ability. With the super not mattering as much as far as your class or as far as your super stat goes, you're really not going to miss out on having a reduced stat distribution with your super, so you can take advantage of literally every other aspect of the entire run, every single run that you do on any activity that you're running on. Whether that's raids, dungeons, reclaim activities, maybe pinnacle ops, or you're doing conquests. I've done almost all my conquests with a Hellion build. And I'm not joking when I say that it literally is easier to get through some of those with a Hellion than it is even with other buddy builds. And I say that knowing that there's other buddy builds out there that are, meta as well. But Eunoia and the Hellion have come so far, especially in higher end activity, way further, way more, useful to spec into than I thought honestly possible, than a lot of people honestly thought possible. And that's what makes this build, this armor, this style of play so important for every Warlock. Every Warlock should have 3 good builds. And with Prismatic and now the grenade scaling, it's like most Warlocks are probably going to have 4, 5, or even 6 good builds that revolve around turrets, and this certainly is no slouch. So hopefully you guys liked the video. Please like and subscribe. Share it with the Guardian Need if you found anything helpful. I will see you guys next time. Thanks as always for your support. Take care.